Boom. Right. Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody is well. Welcome to the talk. Tonight's talk will be done by Fraser, who is an expert in all things portable, SOTA, BOTA, and numerous other things. So without further ado, I'll let you take it away, Fraser.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and thanks for the invite. It's a pleasure to be on, and it's been quite an interesting couple of days because I live in a village near Boyne and called Logie Coldstone, and they've got quite an active WRI, the Women's Rural, and they actually asked me to do a presentation last night, and they had a meeting with about 30 of them there, and they wanted to hear about Summits on the Air and Country File on the BBC. So everything should be really fresh in my mind. I tried to keep theirs as non-technical as possible, but it went down rather well, and they did have some nice tea and cakes afterwards. So I can't wait to be asked back. But yeah, I'm going to talk tonight. It's going to be quite informal. I don't have any slides because my PC webcam's not playing. So a bit of a chat, bit of a show and tell. I'm absolutely open to being interrupted. Any questions, any comments, any debate, just go for it. If not, you can save them up to the end. So a little bit about me. I was born in Dundee, and I've always liked two things, which was climbing hills, and I always wanted a Land Rover, and I didn't get either of those from my family. And when I started uni in Dundee, I did start climbing some hills, and I think by the time I'd finished uni, I was doing some rock climbing and some winter ice climbing, and probably did about 100 and odd Munros, maybe about 100, I think. By the time I was in my sort of mid-20s, and then I moved to London with work, and that all stopped, but I used to come up for my holidays and crack off a few more. And then I moved back to Scotland, family and all that kind of stuff got in the way, and I pretty much became a lot less active. And but the one thing I did when I moved back to Scotland was I joined a Land Rover club in the Central Belt, and everybody in the Land Rover club that I was in London used CBs. When I moved to Scotland, they were all running about with Yaesus and ICOMs because a few of the organisers were hams. So and they had so many amateurs in the club that they actually used to run their own foundation licenses. So I did a foundation license around about 2004, and one of the other chaps in the club was he was an electronic engineer, and I had a background in electronics as well through studying. So him and I decided to go and do our intermediate, and then we took the full exam, and we did all that at the Port Seaton Amateur Radio Club, which is a fantastic club, really friendly. So we were driving through there every Saturday to get our training, and then I moved again away up north, Aberdeenshire, and I did actually set up a bit of a station. I had a bit of a slipped disc at that time, so I wasn't able to do too much, and I did do a fair bit of radio, mainly because I woke up at 4 o'clock every morning in agony. So I would go downstairs and fire up the radio. And then a few house moves and nothing else happened for many years, really. And then at 2019, I was looking at all those boxes of stuff and thinking, do I use this and or do I sell it? So my wife and I, Mo and I, go to Mull every year for the rally, and we try and do some hill walking there. And we were climbing a hill just above Craigmuir, which I think is Dunnagai. I think it's pronounced, probably not. And I had my old, I'd started going out for a walk with the radio, this old Yaesu VX7R, which is a bomb-proof thing. You could drop it at the bottom of the ocean and it would still work. And I dialed up the Mull repeater. It was still programmed into it, and Robin, who's GM7PKT, I think he was the leading SOTA activator in the whole UK at that point. He came on and had a yap with me, and he started talking about SOTA, and it had been something I'd always known about because I'd been reading, Radcom for years, even though I wasn't active. But it seemed to me to be just old men sitting on misty hills somewhere, and but when I started speaking to Robin, I thought, oh, I'm going to have a look at this. So that was kind of autumn of 2019. So as you do when you want to start a new hobby, you go out and buy something. So I went and I bought a VX7R. It's funny how the aerial isn't showing on this screen because of the background. I bought this VX7R, which has APRS, and I wanted to start doing some electronic projects as well. So I built a heater out of a Yaesu FT7800, which is the 2-meter radio. It doesn't have a cooling fan or anything. A Raspberry Pi, and I'd done a bit of coding at uni, so it was nice to kind of do that, get Direwolf up and running, and you know, I'd be kidding you if I said I got it up and running in less than a month and wasn't a lot of head scratching and all that kind of stuff. Because if you've never done Raspberry Pis in Linux before, you're starting at the bottom. But I got my NOV and I got it up and running, and then I thought, well, I need to go up some hills with this and make sure the APRS is working. So I made a call them flower pot antennas. It's a half wave for 2 meters. And I put mine inside a plastic pipe and stuck it on the side of my rucksack, hooked it up to the FT3D, and Mo and I went hiking about the hills. And I was on lots of fun seeing where my APRS signals were getting picked up. Mo was quite embarrassed of me really walking about with this big tube sticking out my rucksack, but we did get a few looks. And then that took us into the start of 2020, and I was really keen to get going in SOTA. I had an FT857. I had done some portable stuff before. Believe it or not, in 2010, I had the call sign 9X0CX in Rwanda when I was on there on holiday. And then probably the last time the FT857 had been used. And because I was working from hotel rooms, I had a power supply with me. So I needed a battery for the FT857, and this is where it all kind of started. You couldn't get batteries. There was a shortage of the lithium ferrite batteries, but I had a quad battery someone had given me, and you know, the FT857 weighs 3 kilos. This quad battery weighed about 6. I had a small camera tripod, and I'd made a 2-meter antenna. I've actually got it here. Maybe somebody can tell me what it probably won't show up now because of this crazy background I've got. It's all folded up, but you'll recognize it's a cheap and easy tape measure antenna that you know, pretty much anyone can make. And I'd made this for waving about at the ISS as it flew over the house, and you're kind of doing the APRS stuff with the ISS, and it worked really well. So one January morning, we went hiking up Morven, which is a SOTA summit, which is literally on my doorstep. And I had a back-breaking load of all of this stuff. We got to the top, it was a blizzard. We hunkered down in the cairn. I can keep Mo occupied for about 20 minutes if I give her a cup of tea, and I set all this stuff up. And the first thing that happened was when I put the Yagi on top of the little tripod, it just entirely folded in the wind. And it kept folding and it kept folding, and that was it. I had no chance of doing anything. So I went back down with a very sore back and thought, right, I need to try something different next time. And I did a bit of research into SOTA. So we went up, well, we were into lockdown by this time, so I couldn't really go anywhere else but Morven without breaking the law. I was still traveling back and forward to work in West Hill, but in terms of recreation, you were really allowed to exercise from home. So the old, or the new FT3D came out again, and somewhere it worked out that if you put a decent antenna on it, it can make a difference. So I got this RH770 from Diamond. This isn't it, this is version 2. And I think I put an alert on the SOTA website. I'd worked out that much. And then we went up Morven again, and it's a shame I can't share photographs because it was a stunning winter in 2020, and I've got a really good picture of Mo with snowshoes just plodding up the steep side of Morven. And the place was packed. Everyone was out skiing because you couldn't ski anywhere. The ski centres were all closed. They were hiking up the skis and skiing off the back and all sorts. And Sunday morning, 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in the morning, opened up this antenna and started calling because I didn't realise that you could put a spot on or self-spot. Not that it would have made any difference because I've come to realise that where I live is a bit of a 2-meter dead spot unless you pre-arrange some contacts. Somehow I managed to make 4 contacts. Frozen fingers at the end of it. I couldn't even read my writing on the notepad that I had with me, and I was using a Sharpie, and my fingers were so cold I could barely write. But I scraped 4 contacts, got 4 points and some winter bonus points, and as you do, I went and wrote about it on the SOTA reflector, and I think they were quite glad to see it because no one else was activating summits at that point due to lockdown. And I got a few hints and tips from folks saying, yeah, well, maybe if you put a spot on and all this kind of stuff. So I made all the same rookie errors that if everyone else does. And fast forward to April, I managed to get hold of a battery, and excuse me while I dodge out the shot slightly. And it's I'm sure a lot of you know about the Hobby King website. So that's a zippy compact 8400 milliamp hour, probably twice as much as the size that I really needed. But you know, it weighs a kilo. But you know about these lithium ferrite batteries, they're so light for the power, and they put out 13.2 volts all day, you know, really stable voltage. And then you know, when it's done, it just drops off a cliff. And I don't think I've ever emptied this one. So that got me going with the FT857, and I'd made a dipole, or an inverted V for 40 and 20 meters. And there's a really good dipole calculator. I mean, there's loads of these inverted V calculators. They all work. There's one on the SOTA Maps website. It's under extras. And I can share some links on Discord later if anyone's interested. I'm kind of assuming everyone knows where most of this stuff is, but I'll happily put stuff on if required. And I cut it as per the thing, and it just worked. It was giving me good SWR, linked inverted V. Because of QRP, I didn't put a balun where the wires meet the coax. It just connected it straight in, one to the shield and one to the center, and straight down. And I kind of regretted that later on, because with the FT857, obviously you can crank it up. And once I got above 20 watts with that, I was probably getting a bit of feedback. But on the other hand, it did let me know that you could work SOTA summits without much power, because they come looking for you. So I went hiking away up another local hill, Mona Gowan, which is the next one to Morven. I think lockdown must have been eased off a little bit by then in April. And went on to 40 meters and had a pile up. And I'd never ever worked a pile up in my life before. I'd been a very casual operator. And it was exhilarating, to say the least. And I think that was probably the first time I had Manuel Echo Alpha 2 Delta Tango. I'm sure he's in everyone's logs. And yeah, it was great fun. And then I put up a 2-meter Yagi that I'd made, and I had a 2-meter sideband contact with a chap in Edinburgh, because the FT857 is the perfect radio for that. And that was me hooked. And when I started doing this sort of thing, I kind of thought it was going to take me about 10 years to achieve any kind of mountain goat or anything like that, purely based on my kind of present rate of climbing hills, because I really just thought about Munros, because that was all I ever did. Unless we were on a place where there weren't, you know, many Munros, like the Island of Mull or something like that. Most hill walkers in Scotland is about Munros. But then SOTA opened up this world of other lesser hills, but they're amazing hills and mountains that, you know, all over the place. And there are 87, I think, in the sort of Echo Sierra in the Scottish Eastern region. And I started ticking these off. I went into the Cairngorms and did some of the high ones, you know, some of the 10-pointers, and got a mountain bike, so that's quite handy for that kind of thing as well. And then, oh yeah, I started filming myself, because I've always filmed hobbies. I used to film the Land Rover stuff and do a presentation for the AGM for the club at the end of the year, but with the old camcorder with the DV tapes. And so I got hold of a GoPro, and I just started making stuff and put it on YouTube. So it was really just because I like doing that kind of thing, and it kind of grew from there. And it got to the stage over that summer, I think I was knocking off a couple of summits a week. I was making sure I got away from work early on a Tuesday afternoon and did something, and then at the weekend, Mo and I would go for a walk on a Sunday and maybe do a couple of Munros. And 14 months later, we found ourselves on the island of Mull in October again, 22. Obviously, we're past all the lockdowns and stuff, and you know, I was only about 6 points away from the Mountain Goat. And so managed to knock off a couple of 2-point summits there. And Mo and I then went and climbed Ben Moor, which is the only Munro on Mull, and we've been up there a few times. It's a cracking hill. And that was it. And I had the biggest pile up I think I've ever had. I think I worked about 40 stations on 40 meters, and then, you know, quite a chunk on 20. So it was superb. And that was always the aim. But along the way, I've learned a lot, and it's allowed me to achieve a lot of my hill ambitions that I've been dreaming about since I was, you know, probably 20 years old. I used to pore over ordnance survey sheets and look at long distance walks, walking from Blair Athol through Glen Tilt, up into Braemar, walking some of the great passes, the Larrigrew and all these places that the really famous mountain passes, and camping wild and doing expeditions and all this kind of stuff. And I'd never actually done any of it, but it was all at the back of my head. And SOTA's given me an opportunity, an excuse to go and do some of that stuff. And I know a lot of you guys probably seen some of my videos, so I'm not going to too much detail here. But what that did give me was a reason to lighten my kit and to really think about what I was carrying on the hill. And that's what I'm going to talk a bit more about tonight. So if you can imagine, the first overnight expedition I went on, my son and his girlfriend were going to Aviemore on holiday, so I got them to drop me off at the Glenmore Outdoor Activity Training Centre, which is just on the ski road near Aviemore. And I had a mission. I was going to walk across 3 or 4 big Cairngorm summits, camp somewhere. Well, I had a bivy bag, and then kind of walk out to the Braemar side the next day. So it was a sort of Friday afternoon and Saturday expedition. Except it was blown a hoolie, and my fiberglass mast that I had at the time, which was a proper fishing pole type, kept falling over and then snapped on the Bynnick Moor, which was the first summit. I was carrying this brick and my FT857 and a smaller mast, because I was there was some kind of 2-meter sideband activity on the Saturday, and I thought, yes, I'll just do that from Ben McDowie. And plus a bivy bag, sleeping bag, stove, all the kind of stuff for an overnighter. And it weighed about 20 kilos. And I actually don't know how I managed to climb some of the hills that I climbed with it on. And I had to ford quite a deep and fast flowing river as well. And the wind was so strong that when I woke up the next morning, it was 40-mile-an-hour winds blowing where I was bivvying, just below the sort of summit slopes of Ben McDowie. And I called it a day, and I just walked back out. So most of what I've learned is by making mistakes. The fold up Yagi, unsuitable for a hill. The big battery, the FT857, yeah, it's okay for 3-4 mile walks. But anything longer than that, then it's too much. So I think the situation must have changed a little bit with the batteries, because I did manage to get hold of the half-sized one, and I'd had express permission from Mo that I could search out and try and find a KX2, which after doing a fair bit of research, seemed to be the radio for me, because it would it's a small compact radio. I'd kind of got my head around the fact you didn't need 50 watts on a summit, and I wanted to get one with a tuner. I'd been using a W3 EDP, but I'd had to carry a separate tuner with my FT857, and I've got it here actually. I can never remember the name of it, but it's one of these ones that does have internal batteries. Here it is here, because I think I was using it for a bunker a couple of weeks ago. So it's a LDG Z2 Pro 2. So it's actually got a battery tray inside it that you can fill with AA's, which I thought was great, because then you're you can just take it anywhere and use it. However, it massively increases the weight, and also the switches are live all the time, which is a bit of a pain. And it's really quite difficult to take the batteries out. You have to unscrew it. And if I was sensible about it, I would have just made a Y connector for this and run it off of this, which is what I do now with it. To be honest with you, when I take it anywhere. So anyway, KX2s were a bit more available than they are now. Waters and Stanton stocked them, and I put an alert on their website, and a couple of weeks later one came up. And you know what it's like with Elecraft, you just get the bare radio. So I made a microphone, and just converted a Bofeng one. I couldn't afford a battery because they were 80 quid, which was a ridiculous amount of money. But I managed to get a tuner, the tuning board for it, from Germany. The guy in Germany no longer stocks Elecraft stuff. I think he's actually closed his business because the supply of it was so sporadic. So there we go. I had my KX2. I had my tuner inside it, and I was able to use that with a W3 EDP, which has always been one of my favorite antennas. It's 84 foot long, but it will tune on anything from 40 meters, from 18 meters right up to 10, and it's just got a 15 or 17 foot counterpoise that you trail along the ground. I've never used 80 meters on a summit successfully, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. But I was still using it with this battery, and I used to crank it up to 12 because with 13.8 or 13.2 volts on a KX2, you can actually get 12 12 watts out of it, and that extra 2 watts in my head was making all the difference. So so that was that, and off I went, and I started tackling more summits in a day. You know, I was knocking off 3 or 4 Monroes. And then I thought, well, I kind of need to lose this because this is still half a kilo, but I'm not prepared to spend £80 on a basically what is 3 cells that goes inside a KX2. So I made one. I bought some shrink wrap. I didn't bother putting a battery management system in it because I use a balanced charger. So I actually fitted the balanced charge leads to the side of the thing. But at the same time, I actually managed to find one on some Chinese website. I think that Grand Tano website or whatever it's called. And there was an identical battery on there with a BMS inside it for 12 quid or something. So I ordered that, and it turned up at the same time as I finished making my own battery. And I didn't expect too much from it because I'd spent decent money on new cells for my one. And they both to this day hold the same amount of charge and last the same amount of time. And the good thing with the KX2, it's got an external 12-volt port on it. So if the battery inside drops, to be honest, the radio will still work at 5 watts, and I normally just keep going. And it's amazing how little difference there is to the signal reports. But if it drops too much, I can actually just grab the second battery and plug it in the side, and it takes me back up to 10 watts again. So you don't even have to open the radio to change it. So that got me thinking about the rest of my kit. And I wanted to do some more overnight stuff. And there's 2 remote Monroes that very rarely get activated in between sort of Braemar and Dalwhinnie. Really, there's a big sort of no man's land in the middle of the Cairngorms and no roads or anything. And I wanted to do a bit of a yomp across those 2, and then a Corbett, which is a sort of sub 900 meter summit that had only been activated once or twice, really in the middle of nowhere, on the way down towards Blair Athol, and then a bit of camping the next day, walk and do another Corbett and another Monroe that don't get activated all that much, and that would drop me down at Glen Tilt, which is near Blair Athol. And I was just going to walk all the way back through Glen Tilt, back towards the sort of northern end of it, and pick up my bike and cycle back to near Braemar. And it actually was quite a pleasurable expedition. I completed the last summit of the first day at 9 o'clock at night because I didn't start till sort of 2, 3 in the afternoon. And I bivvied down in the heather off the summit, had a nice meal, woke up the next day quite refreshed, and I was carrying an 11 kilo pack on that trip compared to the sort of 20 kilos that I was carrying previously. So and that was including water. So it made a huge difference. The interesting thing was the next day when I was walking out through Glen Tilt, which is a narrow straight sort of V Glen. So once you're in it, you're not getting out of it, and it goes on for about 12 miles. It's a fantastic walk in itself. You can take a mountain bike through it for most of it as well. There was a girl run towards me, and it was about sort of 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'd finished the last summit. I knew I had about 8, 9, 10 miles to walk through this glen to get back to my bike. We'd ditched it in the heather. And girl's wearing a high vis, young girl, and she ran up to me. Oh, stop! I need you to read this. And she turned round, and on the back of her high vis was like A4 with writing on it, and it said that there's filming up ahead, just round the corner here. We're filming a nudist movie. If you're of a sensitive disposition, then you might want to wait till we're finished filming. And I said to the girl, no. I said, I need to get home. So I put my baseball cap on, put my head down, and what you can't see can't hurt you. And I successfully got out the other side of it. But that was a great expedition, and it proved that the lighter kit would work. And I actually came in my work clothes tonight for SOTA. So this is the first thing I wanted to say to folks: don't go buy new stuff. Start off with what you've got, because that's what I did, and and just tweak it from there. Don't go and buy a load of new kit. But I got this Berghaus cardigan, and it's great because it's got a hood on it. Probably upset the audio now, but when you put the hood up, if you're operating on a summit, it can really just take the wind off you. And the other thing that I really the other purchase they made, which is probably a lifesaver, is a really lightweight Rab down jacket. Because the thing I quickly learned with doing SOTA is it's a lot different from hill walking, because when you go to walk up a hill or a mountain, you stop at the top, touch the cairn, drink of water, and off you go, or you maybe sit down in the shelter, have a quick bite, and then away. Whereas on a SOTA summit, with the best will in the world, even if you're super quick, you're going to be up there for half an hour, and your body does cool down, and you do need to to layer up. You tend to climb in less clothes because you're expelling a lot of heat. You wear too much, you're going to sweat. But when you get to the top, you do cool down fairly quickly, and it is important to layer up. So anything with a hood on it, is even thin items with a hood and things like that really help. And especially when I was doing that overnighter, I was walking in the afternoon and cycling in the afternoon. It was a lovely day. It was 20 degrees. It's sort of 9 o'clock at night. It was breezy on the summit and down to probably about I'd say probably about 5 or 6 with wind chill. So it is important to kind of consider clothing that can do a bit of everything for you. And then the big expedition I did was I walked from the not quite near my house in the top of Strathdon. I walked right over 9 summits in the Cairngorms, and that was over 3 days, so 2 nights camping. And again, I managed to do that with a sort of 11, 12 kilo pack that got lighter as I progressed, because I was eating some of the food and everything in it. And that was an absolutely fantastic expedition. The one thing that my wife made me buy for that is used GPS for years. I used GPS even when the Americans still had their selective availability turned on, and you couldn't really rely on it being accurate. But I got the go ahead to go and get a Garmin InReach, which is a mapping GPS, but you pay a subscription to Garmin. I pay the cheap one, which is £12 a month. And in my head, I cancelled a subscription I had for something else. I can't remember what it was now. So in my head, it wasn't costing me anything, this extra £12 a month. And you can share a link on here, and your friends and loved ones, etc., can see where you are pretty much at any time. And it also has the function that you can press the SOS button on the side of it, and it will alert a call center that will alert the rescue services in your country. And and these things do work. You do hear stories of people being rescued. You also hear stories of mountain rescue teams being called out. Some of the earlier InReaches were triggered by accident, but I think they've got it sussed now. So again, it's a really handy bit of kit, and I took it on that 3-day hike. But the thing now, if anyone that's been in the hills recently will know that mobile phone signal is so much better in Scotland than it was. The summits pretty much got exclusive, really good coverage. Even the really remote Corbett I did on that overnighter, if I was standing on the cairn and holding my phone up, I actually had enough of a 4G signal to spot. So I used to use a notepad when I first started, and I was using these waterproof ones. I was reaching for my phone there, and I just realised I'm speaking to you on it. And then I heard about VK Portalog. So that was one thing else I could dispense with a notepad. And if anyone's never tried it, you have to have an Android phone for VK Portalog. But the guy that made it, he made it specifically for the outdoor activities he likes. So he does there's one called VK Shires on the air, and there's SOTA, POTA, WWFF compatible in there as well, or you can just use it for a sort of normal portable operation. And it's an absolutely fantastic app. It's really good for SOTA because you can spot using it, and you can flick the screen to one side and see everyone else that's spotted. And if one of them happens to call you for a summit to summit, you just tap on it and it takes you back to the logging screen, and it's pre-populated it with the person's call sign, their summit, and the frequency and all this kind of stuff. So it is an absolutely amazing app. I nearly got caught out though on the big 3-day hike I did, because when I got to the final summit, Ben Avur, high top in the Cairngorms, it really started to rain, and I literally just set everything up. What I should have done is set the tent up, because I planned on camping up there. And as soon as you got 2 raindrops on your phone screen, you're absolutely screwed. You're trying to wipe it on probably damp clothes and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it wasn't great. I think I got 4 or 5 contacts in the log that night and called it a day. So now I do carry a little backup notepad and pencil for those instances. And that was a really good trip. And I think because of the sort of videos and because I was putting a lot of energy into it, I got asked to do the BBC thing with Ben, GW4BML, who he's now bringing some youthful enthusiasm to the RSGB board. And Ben had been up. He was so enthusiastic about SOTA that he drove up from Wales one weekend, and I took him into the Cairngorms and we did some big summits. So we did know one another. And I got told they were looking for someone young, and I said, "Oh, that's very nice, thank you." And they said, "No, not you, Ben." Um, but they used me because they knew I could film myself at a reasonable standard, and the BBC used my footage that I shot, came out the woodwork. I hadn't spoken to for years. They'd seen it on the TV. They probably didn't even know I was a radio amateur or what SOTA was. So that was quite good fun. The only thing that wasn't good fun about it was me sitting on a summit for 4 hours calling CQ. I don't think I'd ever had such a full log by the time Ben finally came on, because the BBC, it's like when people are filming, it goes on forever. He'd been there from 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, and and that was it for our sort of 30 seconds of footage. So I mean, that's pretty much the SOTA journey for me. The only thing really to mention on top of that was that it kind of got the bug for when we go on holiday. Can we look and see if there's any SOTA summits around? So we took a trip to Madeira last year, and yeah, there's one you can pretty much drive up, and another couple of fairly easy walks. So we did a couple there, and then we went to Tenerife in January and for a week, and I'd only planned on doing one summit, but the weather was so fine and the mountain scenery was so outstanding that Mo was egging me on, right, what are we doing tomorrow? What are we doing tomorrow? So I think we ended up doing about 4 or 5 in Tenerife, and it was really, really nice. And then finally we went to Colorado, and my wife's had surgery this year, and it was never going to be an active holiday. But who knew America had 14,000 drive-on summits? So we found Mount Evans, which is now called Mount Blue Sky, Pikes Peak, which is the famous one I wanted to visit because of the motorsport with the hill climb. And when I started looking around up in Wyoming, we found a few others that we could do from pretty much driving on the vehicle. And I managed to find an unactivated summit at the side of the road as well. So that was it really. I was just going to finish off by probably just like showing you what my kit is now, and this is the kit I took to the talk last night, and it's the kit that I was using, and I'd probably use it this time of the year. And I've got my sort of day pack down to a sort of 15 liter sack now. If it doesn't work, I might have to turn this background off. And it's kind of, the most important thing with doing SOTA is you have to be prepared for the hills. If you're going into high hills or out in cold weather, that's the most important thing, and the radio kit's secondary. So don't compromise on your actual hill gear. So there's the RAB jacket, and it packs down really small. I think it only weighs about 250 grams, and I'm not a gram counter. It's a RAB Atmos, and it's absolutely superb. And if I put the hood up on this and the hood up on that, I can put my hand in my pocket if I'm cold, and I can just take it out for doing logging, and it works really well. I managed to find, this was in the sale, there's a website I use called Ultralight Outdoor Equipment, and it's really geared up for these ultra marathon runners and these guys that do these crazy hill marathons. And this is just a waterproof jacket that doesn't weigh anything, but it's breathable. It's made by OMM, and it cost me under £100, and I would happily wear that summer and autumn. And in the winter, I tend to resort to my Paramo gear that I've had for years. Mo and I did a bit of backpacking and a lot of long distance walks in Scotland, and this is a sort of Paramo jacket and trousers, and it's a fair bit heavier, but it's made of this sort of neck wax protected stuff, and it's really, really bomb proof. It's perfect for sort of the sort of damp conditions we get in the hills in this country. Really, really breathable. Lots of zips for venting and all that kind of stuff. And I've started wearing that already this year. And then I suppose onto the radio stuff. I'm sure everybody knows about the famous SOTA Beams carbon 6 pole I actually get really angry with myself now if I've actually got to guy this, because I've got this little sleeve that's just made out of a bit of plumbing pipe, waste pipe, and there's normally always a few rocks or something that you can just jam this into, or a fence post that you can put a couple of Velcro straps around and use that to raise the mast. And I've only recently started experimenting with vertical antennas, because there is definitely a belief out there that carbon fiber masts do not work with vertical antennas running down the side of them. Well, believe me, they do. They don't get detuned. I've got a 20-meter up and outer that I used quite a lot when we were over in Colorado and Wyoming, and I was working DX with it with 5 and 10 watts. And that, my original fishing pole was probably a meter long, weighed a kilo. I think this is about 400 grams, and I broke one section of it through absolute clumsiness when I was on a frozen summit, and it got ice rime in it because I'd left it wet from a previous use, and I did snap. I kind of collapsed one of the sections, but the SOTA beams are so good that you can order the individual sections for it as well. And then on to the radio that's inside the bag. Well, I've got this little bag here that's got the KX2 in it, and this is pretty much the Radio Shack, because it's got the KX2. It's got a 41-foot random wire that works for the KX2. I've got some guys and a guy ring on one side. In the top, I've got some tent pegs and my little adapted Bofeng microphone. So you basically put that together with that, and that's you've got your radio station. Or if you're American, you put that together with something to throw the wire over the tree, and that's you got your radio station. And because of the time of the year, I've started carrying the old the Bothy bag again, which is a 2-man. If you do plan on buying one of these for you and your partner or your friend, I'd advise you to try it first, because the 2-man is really, really tight. Mo and I had to get in it one day in a blizzard, and yeah, we just fitted. Two folk that are my size would struggle, but folks say that the 3-person one works really well. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's a small first aid kit, a bit of food. I've got water, the holder for the GPS, the 2-meter handheld goes on there, and I've got a little sit mat that goes on the side, and it's just cut up from a bit of yoga mat or something like that. I can't remember, exercise mat. And that seems to be the sort of the pack that I go to. Because we've done so many foreign travels, I've actually got my license inside here as well in a pouch, and I've got a little cheat sheet for the KX2 in case I have to try and remember how to change any of the settings on it. But one of the things I've done with my radios, all my radios that I use on the summits, is I program in the QRP frequency for every single band. And I don't necessarily, I try to avoid the QRP frequency when I'm on any of those bands, because the people that are calling me could be using 1,000 watts or whatever, but it's a place to start. So I can't even remember what they are now, but I think it's, is it 7.090 on 40 meters? So that's it, memory down to there, and then I just tune up or down from there, and it kind of gets you on there a little bit quicker. So the only other thing really was I was going to say, just to finish off, initially SOTA for me was about climbing hills and getting points and getting to the mountain goat. And then once you've got that, and what do you do next? Well, that's when I started thinking about going on to the higher bands. Can I make some more efficient antennas? I've got a 15-meter delta loop sitting there. I made myself an end-fed half wave and a 49-to-1. I started looking at, can I do different stuff with 2 meters? 70 SEMs, that kind of stuff, and I actually find that I'm spending a bit more time on summits now and enjoying the radio. I did one on Sunday, and I thought I'd made about 25 contacts on 40, 20, 15, and 10. And when I got home and checked my VK portal log, I had 57, and it was a good little session on the radio on a nice easy hill. So I know that extreme mountaineering and multi-day expeditions isn't for everyone, but that's really what drove me. But now I'm just looking to see how many different ways I can enjoy it, including those foreign trips that I've been doing. So that's pretty much it from me. Hopefully there's a few folks still on the call, and quite happily take any feedback or questions.
Well, firstly, I'd like to say thank you very much, Fraser, for your talk. It's been much appreciated. And, it's certainly lots of insights from my point of view because I've done the SOTA summits in the day, but I've not done the expedition yet. But I managed to acquire myself late summer a really lightweight tent that's designed more for up the hills. So that's my plan next year, is to do more the expedition, go away for a night, do a summit, and then maybe do another summit the next day, and then come back down. So certainly what you've said tonight has resonated well with me. With that, has anybody else got any questions at all? And silence in the room. Right, with that then, I will stop. I'll stop the recording and say thank you very much to anybody who's listening, and you're all more than welcome to join the OARC server if you'd like any more information, etc.